everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Golfing Dad's Halfway House. How's everybody doing today?
What's up?
Not a bad day.
Love the energy
Not a
so
bad
far.
Is it
Full of energy.
Is it a slow day?
Is it a slow day? It's maybe we need to speed this up a little bit.
I mean, I feel like that's what we're talking about tonight.
We need to play faster. So
Yeah.
there's been a lot of talk around golf in general about slow play, about what's causing it, and we're gonna hit that main topic right now with the hot button of the week, pretty much.
It's been the last couple weeks.
It has, but it really
since
hit
Lucas Glover. Well, Lucas Glover started this rabbit hole on his radio show, and called out AimPoint directly and said maybe we need to ban AimPoint.
And then it's just taken off from there.
Right.
And then someone pointed a tap in.
Yes.
So that's our topic for tonight is aim pointing. We're going to go down this rabbit hole.
Is it AimPoint or is it slow play? And are we causing this ourselves?
I think it's twofold.
Yeah. Sometimes, I can see it from a pro's point of view, that, the aim point is trying to help them get the read. Yes, no, maybe. But if we're talking about the average player out there, trying to do this and look on the green and holding up play, that's like me standing out in the middle of a fairway on a par 5 saying, I think I can make the green from here.
So let me ask you this.
After topping your drive.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Have either of you, because I have not, have either of you played with anyone or seen anyone on the golf course that's not a professional actually use AimPoint?
So, yes.
Okay.
No.
And Greg, you met the guy at the PGA show, I think, very briefly, right before we did our thing with Trotty and Sky in the Super Tags.
Yep.
For Sky Caddy, for Sky Golf.
Yep.
Marcus Potter, who runs Potter's Putting. I was caddying an event at Eagle Creek that they had brought in people, and he gave an AimPoint clinic before playing, and then was on the golf course on a hole, making sure everybody learned how to AimPoint. And talked about, and he and I talked, and I asked him questions because my first question was, how do you decide what is one finger, what is two fingers, what is three fingers? It's a valid question at this point, right? Like, that's where we're at. Because I don't get it. I don't. And so he gave me a lesson on it. I've tried it. I actually don't, for me, and it could be that I'm just a bad putter, a bad golfer, don't understand it. I don't think it helps me putt.
Yes.
A miracle.
We have it.
Steve just admitted he's a bad golfer on this.
We have it on recording.
But Steve, let me ask you this question. Because you talked about it for you. Explain to the general public who are watching this or listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify that what AimPoint is and how you go through it.
So the trick is you have to feel the slope with your feet. And we'll use Keegan Bradley. Keegan does this and look at all of his putts this way. So I'll use Keegan, where you're feeling the slope with your feet. And then you decide by standing a foot behind the golf ball if the break is 1%, 2%, or 3%. And that's how you're holding up the number of fingers. And you hold it whatever way you feel it breaking, the right side of whatever finger you decide. So if it's one finger, you're lining up the right edge of your right finger with the middle of the hole, and that's where your break point is. And that's finding you where you're going to putt.
Okay. So you're doing that. You're standing over the ball, or standing over the break. You're deciding, am I leaning to the right or the left? Am I using one finger, two finger, or three finger if it's a larger slope? And then I'm creating my aim point. So now after you do that, do you go then behind the ball and line it up like everyone else does at that point?
No, in theory, that's you lining it up. You find your point left of the hole, right of the hole, whatever you're doing, and that is where you hit the putt too.
Do you actually believe that people can feel that difference? Because I mean, you can stand over a ball and feel there's a slope there, but like
Right.
that you can actually judge how much percentage that is.
I've never been a great greens reader. Dave is the greens reader of the group, and I will give him
That's true.
110% credit. He's the best greens reader I know, except when he's caddying for me.
Don't think that's the reading of the greens problem,
I
but let's
don't
keep
think
going.
that was the reading of the greens there. I don't think
I
that
should have
had anything to
AimPointed.
do with it.
You know, do I think that there is some benefit to saying this? I honestly, he made it sound, and I will say this, he made it sound like there are college coaches out there that is the only way they will take a kid is if they aim point from a putting standpoint. I don't necessarily. Are you telling me that you wouldn't take Tiger Woods coming out of school because he doesn't aim point?
So let me ask you this, and Dave,
I mean, let's
from
be
someone
right.
who reads the greens, yeah,
Yeah.
you're not gonna do that. That's not, you're gonna take the better golfer. But Dave, from someone who reads the greens, when you're reading a green and you're not aim pointing, how do you read a green?
Well, for me, it's looking at the hole and the ball. It's watching shots go in. It's if I'm away or if I'm close, who's putting before me, which way it's breaking. But again, it's just something. Aim point is for me. It's just been practice and repetition. On just learning how my visual lines work on a green, and I guess it could be the same be said for aim point, and it's just practice and repetition on getting that feel. But for me, it's really it's looking at it. It's shadows on the green. It's for me, it's not about feel. It's about those visual lines on what I'm seeing from where the ball to where the hole is, and just trying to adjust the speed, based on what I think visually in my mind how it's going to play out.
Okay, because I mean that's where I'm trying to get to with this is
Yeah.
you have aim pointing and you have a different way of looking at it. So the way that I've always, when I'm really putting well and I'm really taking the time to read my putts, I'm looking at it from behind the ball, then I'm going
Yeah.
to look at it from the other side of the cup, and then as I'm walking back to get ready to line up, I'm also looking at it from the side as well because you might see something
Yeah.
different there. And then I'm picking in how to putt there. It's basically a 3-step process for me.
Mhm.
That doesn't take that long. So why do we think that aim point takes longer than something like that?
So here's my take on this. And Greg, I like your process. I will only go to the opposite side of the hole if it's a downhill putt. I like to look at putts going uphill and then take off downhill. But here's the thing with aim point is it doesn't take into account grain change. So now you have to take into account grain. And I live in Florida where there's a lot of grain. You putt on bent grass where there's no grain whatsoever, typically. So there are other variables that work into putting. I'm a firm believer. The only time I'm at a point where I'm like, ooh, let me aim point this is if I see something that may break twice.
Okay.
In figuring out where's the bigger break and which way is it going to go more.
So do we think that, and Dave, I'm going to ask you this from your thought process of how you go through thinking a putt. Do you think that if you were changing to aim point, or that people that are using aim point right now, they're overthinking their putt and that's what's taking so long?
I think it can be a sense of overthinking. Everybody, we all wear square shoes, and let's just take that for an example. Squares, we know they're technology based in their stabilization for it. What I'm feeling in the bottom of my feet could be different than what you're feeling in the bottom of your feet. If you're wearing, socks that are thicker than mine, who knows?
I'm just thinking of the old Happy Gilmore quote. Oh, you only think it's breaking that way because you're not wearing a left shoe.
Right.
Right.
So, who's to say that, it's right or wrong. For me, when I'm visualizing, it's a double break. Yeah, it might take a little bit more time trying to look at it. Do I always go through the 3-step, process like you do? Look at a play. No, I've always been, I get a pretty good read, from behind the ball, looking at it. And, if it's gonna be a double break, maybe I'll take a second look at it. But I've had that pretty good feel where, if I see it going one way or, two ways, a lot of times for me, it's a lag putt at that point in time. And if I make it from there, great. Um, but that's how I've rolled it. And, you got to be, consistent in that process. It's not something that you could just, pick up and go and change. And with the feeling of the greens in a double break, you're right. With Happy Gilmore, you only think it's breaking that way because, you're standing lower, on
The
no
first
shoe.
break. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question to the group here, because what I'm seeing from this and what I'm getting out of what I see from AimPoint, and in my opinion, is that, and you've both kind of said this, because Steve, you said it about my system that I do, and Dave, you kind of said it about aim pointing, is that when you get a putt and you just go up there and you look at it, you have a read and you have no second guess in your mind, you get up there, you read it, you're like, okay, yep, I think this is what it's going to do. And Dave, you said, I might have seen someone putt before me, so I kind of see the break there, where I feel that people that are on tour that are aim pointing are doing that process consistently. They're aim pointing no matter what the circumstance, no matter what it is. So they're going through that process every time, when it's sometimes you should just get up there and tap it in. Like, just get up there and hit it in.
Okay,
Feel
Happy.
the flow. Feel the flow.
Okay, Happy.
I'm getting there with
tap
that.
it in.
Well,
tap.
Here's the other thing that kind of bugs me about AimPoint is you got to be cognizant of somebody else's line when you're out there trying to feel the breaks, on your putt. Are you getting in? So, you don't want to step in somebody else's line. Are you being aware and cognizant of, where you're trying to plant your feet, to get the break and the feel and the read of where your putt is going based on, somebody else.
That's a good point, because I might, if someone was aim pointing and they're in my line, I know how you tell people that, hey, I need you just move it over like one ball mark, or move it over one club head length. If you're aim pointing, I might tell you, take your driver out and move it over like 5, because I know you're going to stand there and stand through my line. Like, I'm going to move it over more, so you're not standing in my line.
I honestly think part of there's multiple problems. AimPoint actually posted a video this week with someone aim pointing a putt, and then someone, actually it was Jordan Spieth, lining up a putt. Now, Jordan, we all know, is very eccentric when it comes to lining up putts. And they counted the number of footprints on the green and the time it took. And the AimPoint person was faster. Now, obviously, that is a very small sample size of what happens on the PGA Tour. However, the AimPoint one was like 26 seconds, and Jordan was still lining up his putt and had it his putt. They'd only taken like 13 steps, where Jordan took like 41, because he marked up both sides of the hole, yada, 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 yada. And I was just like, okay, it's small sample size, and you picked Jordan. Like, what you should have done if you were going to pick Jordan is, let's see Keegan AimPoint one. Because they're trying to say that AimPoint is faster than regular lining up a putt, because you get to it faster, because you figure it out quicker. I don't necessarily agree with that. Again, I think the problem has come in where you've already got all this focus on slow play on any tour whatsoever, and then you have a picture of an LPGA player literally aim pointing a ball outside of her heels from the hole.
Yeah.
And getting her feet and trying to figure out how much it breaks.
When your toes are halfway in the hole, when you're standing
right,
aim point,
yeah,
you shouldn't
that's
be aim pointing at that point.
I think that there needs to be. Do I think they're ever going to ban AimPoint? I mean, the USGA has done some dumb things in banning equipment. They banned anchored putting, which, you know what, certain players were great at it, certain players were not. I tried to anchor. I tried it at one point in my life and was like this. I look even dumber than I look with a regular putter in my hand.
Was that above your gut or below your gut?
At the gut. I was trying the belly.
Okay.
I tried the belly putter. But, you know, I
Valid
think
question.
I think the problem that I have with this is you run into this dilemma of, and the only thing that I'm going to give the LPGA player that ended up in the picture, and she has become the whipping post for everybody this week, including Dottie Pepper, who made fun of it. Every player on tour has a pre-shot routine.
Yeah.
And that may be a part of her pre-shot routine when she putts. And so if that's her pre-shot routine to get herself mentally ready to hit a putt, well, that any one of us would have walked up and one-handed in the hole and kept going and been like, "Boop, okay, cool, thanks. Right-handed, left-handed, which way are we doing this?" Yeah. I think I'm only the only saving grace I have for them is, again, when you get to that point and you're on TV playing golf, you are really good, but two, you have a pre-shot routine. You stick to your pre-shot routine, and it puts you in the right mental mindset to hit a golf ball and to hit the shot that you need to hit. So I don't want to criticize too much on does this slow play down, because that really does at a 1 foot putt.
So let me ask you this, Steve, with that, because
they play for a lot of money.
They do. So I'm going to ask this, and I'm going to make this kind of a hot take here, where I'm going to say that maybe it's not AimPoint that is the problem. It's the routine and the time of it. So I'm going to throw out a wild idea. I'm going to throw out the hammer. So I'm stealing from TGL for this one. Is on the green, if people think, there you go, it's a napkin. If people think that that's the problem, we talk about slow play and we talk about penalizing people for slow play. Maybe that's the right color, Dave. Maybe we do what TGL does and put a shot clock on the putting green, so that when it's your turn to putt, you have 25 seconds to read that. And if your routine takes too long at that, and you can take this out in majors and different things like that if it's really there, but maybe, and 25 seconds might not be the right amount of time. Maybe you need a little bit longer, but maybe you make it so that this is what the average should be to be able to read a putt. And if you can't do it in that time, you're not going to make up your mind.
Here's the thing, we're learning some things through TGL, with this shot clock. And, we're rolling into baseball season here. We're 3 baseball guys as well, too. ABS is being tested out right now. We're seeing that's not taking very long. And, a couple of years ago when they rolled out, the pitch clock and, the throw, I thought the pitch clock and, everything was going to be the most detrimental thing to baseball. And it sped up the game, overall. And at this point in time, you barely even notice, it's going on anymore. Does it take some excitement, out of Mariano Rivera trying to pick off Dave Roberts at first base, 8 times before he finally steals second, and, the Red Sox go on to, win? Yeah, maybe a little bit of the excitement there.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
I mean, you can make up fairy tales all you want.
Yes, but
you're right.
Can the PGA learn from other sport, like Major League Baseball or TGL right now that has incorporated a shot clock, and maybe they try it out on the Corn Ferry Tour, on some of their lower level tours, to try and say, hey, where does this work and how does it fit in with today's game?
Because when I look at the baseball, the pitch clock, the pitch clock, is it didn't really change a pitcher that was just taking too long. Because here's the thing. If I'm taking too long to read a putt, I'm probably not going to make that putt anyway.
Right.
It's not that extra 10 seconds isn't going to make it that much harder. I need to make a decision and follow through with that decision. I think pitching got better in baseball with the pitch clock. It's my opinion. I think the game got better. As much as I miss 9-hour Yankees Red Sox series, I don't miss 9-hour Yankees Red Sox.
I don't either. Not at all.
So it's made those games better, and it hasn't hurt the game at all. So maybe that's what we need to look at and not blame one thing.
You know what I think needs to happen on the PGA Tour, and it's something that doesn't happen on the PGA Tour. And I get if you're on the same line as somebody and you're on a through line. But dear Lord, not starting to line up your putt and starting to look at your putt until it's your turn to putt. They couldn't play in our group.
Yeah.
No.
Ready golf.
No. Like, we're all looking at putts. And I mean, half the time, if the ball's not in your line, we're barely putting a coin on it. Like,
yeah.
And they're out there Got to put a coin down. You can't look at it. You can't look at your line until it's your turn to putt. Like, there are things that the tour can do to speed up play, and I get that. I think there are things that, not just on the green, but on the golf course, like you hit your drive, you get out in the fairway, you're getting your number, you're pulling a club. I mean, we're pulling clubs while other players are hitting. They don't do that on the PGA Tour.
And you also don't want to distract. You don't want to make noise and things like that. I get that behind it, but you're right. You need to do stuff to keep the game going, to keep that momentum flowing, and not just stand there and wait your turn for that. You got to wait your turn. Don't be rude. Don't distract them from what they're doing. But you can still look at stuff. You can still figure stuff out while you're there. But I think having more of these rules to speed up the game, like baseball did. Like I said, I don't like all the rules that baseball has put into place that they say is for the speed of the game or for different things. I disagree with some of them. But overall, they accomplished their goal of speeding up baseball games. I mean, I went to one that was only 2.5 hours last year, and I was like, oh my God, it's over already, which was kind of a letdown, but it was still, what they have done has sped up the game. And instead of shortening fields, instead of doing this stuff, you can do stuff to speed up the game and not just blame it on AimPoint. AimPoint might be one of the problems, but do a little bit more research and find out maybe there's a different way, because I might AimPoint and do it quickly, but Steve might take 20 minutes to AimPoint just because he's really, like, I'll call it Bryson DeChambeauing and overthinking stuff and doing all the things that the mad scientist does.
Right.
He's got one leg longer than the other.
That's true, and that's what really throws off his AimPoint.
Yeah. No, Greg, I think you're right. Like, there are a lot of other factors. The problem is that the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour, have neglected to look at those issues and have neglected to look at this, and they haven't addressed the problem. I mean, when was the last slow play penalty you ever heard about? Was that like 15-year-old that qualified for the Masters that they finally called one on? Like, in what year was that? Like, that was the last time I can think of somebody getting a slow play. But I think it happened on the Live Tour, and honestly, I think it happened on the Live Tour only because they wanted to be able to say they did it and they were addressing slow play.
And that's what they really need to do. You really need to understand, like, hey, if I lose a tournament because I played slow and that's the rule, I lost it because of the rule. I didn't lose it because you forced me to play faster. The rule was I should be playing at this pace, and I'm taking too much time to line up a shot and do things like that. Like, you're not playing slow because of someone else. You're playing slow because you're playing slow.
Right.
That's the facts. So with that, I think the PGA Tour has some decisions to make and should look into some of this stuff moving forward, because we have a great game. Slow play hasn't always been a problem. It's just gotten worse over the years, and because we've let it get out of control, I think that's where we're at the place we are today.
You know what they could do to fix that?
Enforce the rule.
Or hire us to help them enforce the rule.
Well, we'd be happy to hire to help out. Because we love the sport. I mean, to be honest, I'd be happy if Liv hired me. I'd help them out as well, because I think they got something going there. I just think they need to find what it is. So if this merger is going to go through, we're happy to help. We want to grow the game. So, and speaking of grow the game, if you haven't watched our show, The Golfing Dad's Tavern, we had a great show this week with Lombardi Golf about growing the game and his putter. So check that out as well. Check us out on Apple and Spotify. And cheers.
Till next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm really fortunate, man. I mean, having the opportunity to build something that's
viral on our TikTok that somebody was commenting about playing Whistling Straits for 700